Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go for our
week three
recap show with Home Turf Sport Podcast. I'm Brian Hardy, my co-host over there, Devin Hardy, and we'll go ahead and jump right into this thing. We have some really exciting games this week, some big games this week, and some games that we thought would be pretty good that turned out to be flops.
First off, man, before we get into it, how was your weekend, man? I know I was out the state, but you was in the state.
Nah, I actually left the state too. Well, the state of South Carolina. I was in the state of North Carolina. So,
how was your concert?
It was all right. It is. Try something different. Get out, spend time with some of your people, man. Have a good time. Unwind a little bit. It's good to take a break from things, kind of unplug, get away from all the social media, and just enjoy yourself some. So that's kind of how my day yesterday went. How about yourself?
You didn't have a lot of them flavored waters with some added sugars, did you?
Maybe a couple. Had a couple of adult beverages.
Yeah, I mean that's good for as long as you're above the age. But I had a good weekend, man. NASCAR race was pretty good. Cut race for the NASCAR playoffs, but we don't talk about it a lot. But your driver got cut. That 3-car, Austin Dillon, he's just racing for fun now. Him and his Pat. But yeah, my weekend was fun. It was pretty good. It was good to get away for my birthday weekend, and but we're gonna get right into some scores. We had Marlboro County over Conway, 12-10, and the nail biter Schraw went on the road to Darlington, 13-7. Richmond handled Northwest Guilford pretty good, 42-21. Chesterfield held their own at the Battlegrounds, 49-38. Scotland did what we thought they would do, 49-26. Buford over Matby, 49-30. A big shootout. Central held it down at home against West Stanley, 35-14. South Florence does what South Florence does at Fort Dorchester, 65-7. Wilson, after playing Monday night, rested up pretty well and upset West Florence across town round for 27-21. Dillon bounced back from that loss to Wilson this week. Hit Marion in the head, 61-6. Man, we'll jump right in it. You was on tap for the Marlboro and Conway game. What was you feeling? I know you probably had some mixed feelings about at the start of the game and then halftime at the end, but I know you was probably kind of shaking up there for a little while.
Yeah, to begin with, it threw me off a little when we came out and got word early, right before kickoff, that Trey Blakeney would not be playing or was not scheduled to play. He's been held out, kind of nursing a shoulder injury, what we ended up finding out. Some people were speculating it was an ankle, then some was a shoulder. Just watching him on the sideline, some of his mannerisms and the way he was moving around, I felt like it definitely wasn't a ankle injury. And then when you say shoulder, you automatically go to a throwing shoulder. Most people would. He was throwing the ball around pretty well. I was like, man, don't look like a shoulder injury either. So I really didn't know what was going on there. And Marlboro got off to a slow start. They was running the ball really well. We were still doing some dumb things to derail drives, like snaps just going through the quarterback's hand, or him just blatantly dropping the snap, dumb penalties again early in the game. But I mean, we ran the ball well. Like I said, I don't think they threw the ball but 3 or 4 times the whole game. So they definitely got back to the running. What been working for them all year. As the game went on, I really thought something must have been really wrong with Blakeney because, Marlboro, we just couldn't seem to get anything going. It's like the offense just wasn't settled. I mean, everybody was like they were pressing. Just really couldn't do anything right. End up getting a punt block return for a touchdown, which we found out from the Conway radio guys in the booth. That was actually their first touchdown they had scored all season. And, still to this point, they haven't scored an offensive touchdown. So Marlboro defense, they played well like they have been all year. They kept them in the ball game, hung around. And then finally, late in the game, I guess Mr. Blakeney did enough persuading that I think the last 2 series of the game, Coach put him in, and he was running around, looked really good. So that ended my speculation of an ankle injury, but we did find out that it was a shoulder injury, non-throwing shoulder. He was nursing a little bit. So he really looked good, man. He came out. He actually looked so good in those last two drives, we ended up giving an offense player of the game, just us guys in the radio because, definitely without him, they weren't coming back and win that game. They couldn't really keep anything, a drive going. But he come out, man, he looked like his normal self. I don't know how many yards he ended up with rushing, but I'd say 2 series, I'd say at least it's about 50 yards. And you could just tell he settled when he come into the huddle, just like you could almost see a collective exhale on offense, like they just took a deep breath and let go and just started back playing free, and offense just moved. Even though the first drive they didn't score, but they drove deep down in there, and I think they ended up having a penalty or something that cost them a drive. But that last drive, as soon as we got the ball back, the Conway radio guys looked at me and said, y'all want to break our heart.
Yeah, man. Yeah, hey, I agree with you. Picking off that thing that like you're talking about with the offensive lineman guys with the quarterback, man, most they always play together. And then if you're always up big on somebody, you putting in new linemen against subs and putting the seconds and thirds in. So those guys ain't used to playing with the backup here and there. But I mean, like you said though, I hope the coach noticed that you can't always squeak by with not playing your star players because sometimes it will come back to bite you in the end, and especially at home like that when, like me and you predicted this game to be 2 or 3 scores difference. But I know me and you was talking off the air. You had some, and you said about the penalties that you had 2 or 3 touchdowns come back. I think you said you had Leighton Chavis return one for like 60 or 70 yards, a pick. I know you said you had some holding penalties and off the ball stuff like blocking the back and stuff. But you about a week or 2 away from region play. You can't be having that because and I know this region they're about to go into is about to be one of the toughest 3A regions, if not maybe this year talent wise, maybe the hardest one across 3A in the state itself. But like I said, man, like I seen Conway last week when they played Sherrall, and I didn't really think too highly of them. Like you said, they only passed this week for 3 or 4 times, but when they got in the crunch time on like 3rd and longs like that, they threw a lot of passes last week. But I think when Marlboro and Sherrall played 2 or 3 weeks ago, that defense from the halftime up until now, Marlboro somehow like Sherrall has made a change. Like they're only giving up 13. Was it 7? That's half against y'all. They gave up 3 to Conway and 7 against Darlington other night. I mean, that's pretty good for defense for high school, especially at the 2A level, with the number of guys you got on both sides of the ball. But like you said, though, back to Marlboro County and stuff, yeah, I hope that Blake Kid gets better because, you don't want no star players sitting out, especially in, those kids don't know, but that's an old rival that goes deep, even whenever you play. But those guys don't know a lot. Some of the coaches ain't never even been in that rival. Maybe some from Conway that's like old heads is still doing it, but most everybody nowadays, younger, they don't know about what's in the early 2000s. And I'll let you speak on more stuff about that game you took away from that game from Conway.
Well, going back to that, the rivalry game, and I told the guys up in the box, as far as getting your team up to play the game, I really actually thought Conway had an advantage because they had an ex-Marlboro coach on their staff. Yeah. He was around when the rivalry was going on. Marlboro doesn't have any coaches, only one. They have a guy that played with me, Big Cookie. He played with me in high school, so he's really the only one who could speak on anything with the rivalry. So none of those guys have ever played. Well, last year, they did play last year, but that doesn't mean that's not a rivalry. One game's not a rivalry. They need to know the history of the rivalry. And I thought Conway had an advantage at that point because they had somebody who had been in the battles of that and who was able to talk on that. But, if I would have been the head coach, I would have had, called Cookie in or, maybe some former player and just let them speak to those guys on what that rivalry means and the history between those two teams because, now there's more of a friendly relationship because that one guy that's coaching there was on Marlboro's staff, and those people, some of those guys coach together and like each other. But they didn't always been like that. Like Marlboro, Coach Boyd, Coach Chuck Jordan, he was at Conway. That was a very heated rivalry. Those guys, it was almost a lot of personal fouls and sportsmanlike conduct when those two teams got together because it was always, if one of the coaches got a chance, they were going to run the score up on you. That's just the way it was. They did not like each other. Almost. That might be the most bitter rivalry that I can remember. Marlboro and Sherrall's always been a rivalry, but most of these people know each other. It's not that hated rivalry. Scotland's really not that hated rivalry. Conway was almost a bitter, hated rival. Like you really hated that team over there. Just some of the stuff that the coach would say, like leading into some of the games. I'm sure some of our players or coaches said some things that they hated down there, and it really was like, I hate you. I wish you could lose every game that you play.
Yeah, I'm like you on that rival, man. Like, I coach now. I see what you're saying about like running the score up. It's all fun until somebody really does on you. But hey, if you got a good team that year, at the end of the day, I feel like you run it up, man. And then if you down one year, you just take it because you gave it. If you gonna do somebody else like that, man, you might as well be man enough to take it like that. But yeah, like you speaking on the rival, man, that's a good rival. I hope they keep playing from now on because this year and last year has been good games. But I'm gonna try to jump back into last week. Did you see a difference in the Marlboro's offense? I know you said you was a little mad and a little salty because they went away from the wing tee. But speaking on how the offense got gelled back together last night, I know you said they played the backup quarterback, and what scheme they ran and what was their goals for that game?
Well, it's hard to say that they went back to the wing tee, which they did, but it's hard to say they went back to that just because the spread didn't work as well last week. It could have been a situation where we were forced to go back into that because that's all that Cam Smith had practiced mostly for the offseason, so he knew that more than just spreading out the RPO. Because if you got to watch any of that game, you could see that he really struggled in some of the RPO situations where either he didn't know what read to make, whether to give or keep, or if he did, he held on to it too long in some of those situations, or gave it up too early. I mean, that can happen too. If you give it up too early, the defense end really don't have to make a decision. He knows where you're going. That is really just playing time and experience and a feel thing. I mean, if you're not on the field, it's very hard to simulate that in practice, the RPO game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. But like you said, the backup was in, and I fear the starter should be back next week, man. But we talked off air. I've heard people talk about the Cam Smith guy. I mean, if he's that athletic, man, they need to find somewhere for him to play, even if it's on the defense side of the ball. I mean, especially like a team like this, a local team with good talent, especially if he can free safety. I don't think that'd be hard for him to learn before they jump right to recent play, one or two more games, so experience because you hate to sit an athlete that's that good and had to sit behind him. And I know he's upperclassman, but I mean they already got a QB1. I mean, what's the sense of holding your head on the sideline? Might as well try to find another spot to play.
Yeah, I agree with trying to mix him in somewhere, but it's really, if a kid's been playing quarterback all his life, and this is not nothing about a kid, especially these days, they're not accustomed to a whole lot of contact. So to me, it's really hard to move a quarterback to safety because back there, you really got to be an enforcer. I mean, and you got to be able to tackle well to play safety. So if I was going to move him anywhere, it would be to a receiver position because he is very athletic. And you can see it once he gets out in open space with the ball. He's tough. And I ain't gonna say our offense was bad. I mean, we rushed for 283 yards again last night, so he did something right. I'm not put down the kid and say he played bad all night because he didn't. There was just certain situations where you can just tell that the experience was the difference. It's not that he did right or wrong. He might have made the right read, but it might have just been too soon or it might have just been too early. Like I said, that just comes with time and experience. That's nothing on him. But like I said, you could just see the offense collectively like, okay, Trey's back there. Let's go. And that comes from a lot of times, even if you got the backup quarterback, subconsciously, you might not even think in your head, but subconsciously, everybody thinks, okay, I got to be almost perfect because we got our backup quarterback. If Trey's back there, I don't have to be perfect because he can make something happen. We know he can. So I guess when you got your starter, I say you play a little bit more free because you just know you just do your job like you're supposed to and we're good. Well, if you're missing the starter here or there, not even just that quarterback, if you're missing your starting running back or if you're missing a starting receiver, everybody else thinks automatically they got to do more than normal when really you don't. You still do your job and things usually will work out. So I think that's a lot of what was going on because, like I said, we moved the ball great at certain points, but we just seemed like we couldn't get over that little bit of a hump. Or every time we did do something right, we had a bad penalty, or the next play we would get a bad snap or something. Even at one time I think our center had an equipment malfunction. He had to come out of the game where we put a center in, a new center. I even mentioned it to Chandler on the show. I said, it's tough. When you get bringing a new center in the middle of a drive, this is going to be tough. First play snaps over the quarterback's head for about a 15-yard loss. So just little stuff like that, when you're in a groove, little things like that can derail a whole drive, man. And Marvel just had a lot of that stuff last night. Like I said, they did play well at times and in spurts, but we just couldn't never cash in and put the ball in the end zone. But like I said, when Blakely come in, he made a great drive, that last drive of the game, and showed you exactly why he is, one of the top players around, and he's just a 10th grader, so,
We'll talk about more of him on the show in the next 2 years, I'd say. But I know he's a good player. I mean, you talked up here about how good he is with his reads and his checkdowns and everything. But hey, I condone the coaches a little bit, man. You got to be able to believe in your QB2 in a rival game like that, especially going against a 5A school like that. You got to have confidence in that guy to put him back there instead of just running a wildcat all game or just hug low back there.
Well, I really do like that. Even though they knew he was struggling a little bit, they didn't rush to pull him right back out and put Trey in, knowing Trey was really nursing the injury. They stuck with him pretty much till the end. I mean, literally probably less than 5 minutes left in the game, the last 2 drives, they put Trey in and said, okay, let's see what you can do. But like I said, I do give him credit for sticking with that guy, giving him a chance to kind of work through some things, because you're never going to get experience if you're not out there. So maybe even though everything didn't go perfect last night, if he does have to go back out there again maybe later in the season, he can say, okay, I've been here before now. You know what I mean?
At least in that game, though, it was a close game. You know you got a good defense on the other side, so maybe if you make a turnover, hey, I believe in my defense. We can get the ball back. At least they let him fight his battles while he was out there and not take him out and let him think about it on the sideline. Hey, we'll get back to work on it Monday. We'll watch film. We'll try to look at it and see what we can do to fix what happened. But I don't really have too much more on this game. If you don't, we'll keep rolling.
No, we'll go ahead and move on. Like I said, in closing on that game, man, when you play, it's really collectively not great, and you still can come out with a win. That's always good. That builds confidence in your player. And like I said, I think just Cam knowing he has to know, hey, I don't have to be perfect because my defense is gonna keep us around. Just let me play my game and don't do nothing dumb to hurt us. He'll be just fine. I think last night's gonna be very beneficial for him.
Good, man. Hopefully they do good and they move on to the region play in 2 weeks. We'll slide over to the Sherrall at Darlington. Sherrall beats Darlington 13-7. It was the ABC 15 TV game of the week. Was an Iron game of the week. But I watched this one. I didn't travel with the team this week. Like I told you, man, I'm proud of this defense from the third and fourth quarter from when they played Marlboro County to now. Since then, it's been a tremendous turnaround from that first half. I think our defense had 2 or 3 interceptions. Slick Eyes that had 9 or 10 pass breakups. I mean, he's on 5-6. I mean, in Darlington, they got 6'2", 6'3" wide receivers out there. That's all you got to do, man. Ain't no sense in trying to go up and get every interception you can. Let's knock the ball down. Live to fight another day. You got a defense out there that's playing good for you. Shout out to Brendan Pace, linebacker, first interception of the year. He had a lot of tackles. He played pretty good all night. CP4 played good. Ant Strong played good. Offense still struggles a little bit. Offense line's trying to get gelled in, like you said, with a QB1. Some of those guys' first games, even though they're juniors and seniors. But like we was talking about off air, they ain't gonna see a defense like Marlboro's like they seen. I ain't gonna say Conway's because they was shaky. Darlington had good athletes, even though they can outmatch you with athletes if you want to look at it from that way. But Caden Thomas had a rushing touchdown. Banks had a rushing touchdown, and at the end of the day, the defense won that game for them. But that's all about it, man. In the trenches, you got to win in the trenches, and whatever line prevails at the end. Most time in high school football is gonna win it. It ain't always the guys on the outside that's got to make the spectacular plays. And I like what Coach Poole's got going on with the defense, and I can see them holding people to a minimum amount of points because they only gave up 17 points since that Marlboro game. which ain't really bad considering you gave up 7 to Darlington and 3 to Conway, and then I think Marlboro scored 10 or 14 points in the second half, and that was when they had it was really out of hand then. But I'll let you speak on what you have.
Did Charles running back, did he come back?
He's out to a rigid play.
Okay. I think that's probably just to be cautious with it. You don't want to rush him back.
Yeah.
Because you can get by like that. But Charles will be just fine, man. Like I said, especially getting rigid play. I think that the only thing that keeps Charles from being a true championship contender, that they need to find one more playmaker than Nick. Because Nick does a lot, man, and he's great, and he can win you a bunch of games, but sooner or later, you're going to run into that one team that's going to have, I ain't going to say they're going to have somebody who can hold them down, but they're going to have a good scheme. You need somebody else to take a little bit of pressure off of them, and the Poole can dig in his bag and find that. Or, it ain't got to be one person. Just get some production on the other side from somebody, and that might be, like I said, 2 or 3 people collectively. But somebody has got to keep the pressure, off of Nick. I think Nick's going to do his part. He's going to get his every week, but as dynamic as he is, you still got to have some help from somebody on the other side to keep teams from just lining up double or triple covering you, because Marlboro seen a lot of that last year with Justin Purvis. They'd have a guy bumping him at the line, they'd have another guy, and then they almost sometimes have a safety even on top of that. Sometimes there's 3 people back there. But eventually I think that's what it's going to come to for Nick. And I really think that, Terrell needs to develop somebody else. And it might be when your running back gets back, he might be that guy. But I think Terrell's going to be fine, man. I really thought they'd beat Darlington. I didn't think Darlington had enough firepower to beat Terrell, because, like you said, their defense has came on, man. And they've been playing really good. They actually played really good at Marlboro after, the first couple of series. They really settled in, man. And I give them credit. I don't think Marlboro made enough adjustments in that game, but I think Stroud made the right ones, and they've been rolling ever since on defense. So if they can keep that defensive intensity and just find another playmaker, I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah. Speaking of this other playmaker, they did have one day. I think he's a junior, I believe. I think he's a junior too. He actually broke his hand last week, so they had to move him to safety. And I said the Slick Isaac guy. He's the guy that had the 8 or 9 pass breakups, because he's out there with a big cast on.
Yeah.
You can't catch that ball out there wide receiver like that. But hey, I credit that kid for not saying, "Hey, coach, let me try to do something I can do to help the team out." I said, "Hey, I'm gonna be out for a little while," or this and that. They kind of banged up a little bit on the injuries. They should have had Juice back at region play. Another starting linebacker's out. He gonna come back for region play. So they really just trying to nurse it until it really matters. Everything starts 0-0 when they open up in a few weeks in region play. But speaking of the Darlington side, man, they do got a 6'2", a 6'3" dual threat quarterback. It's really a one-man wrecking crew. Like I told you last week on the show, it was going to be 11 versus 2, man. If they could stop him, they would win the game. And that really came down to what it was, because he was running for his life out there a lot of times. And, hey, I credit him. He was throwing some balls on the run that maybe should have, 50-50 balls that could have went either way. Luckily, we was just able to knock him down. And I think they maybe got 1 out of 6 on 50-50 balls. So I credit him for trying to make something happen. But Darlington defense didn't really impress me. Our offense is getting a lot of playing time together and just trying to gel together to get ready for the playoffs. But not the playoffs, the region and the playoffs openly. But I look for him to get them right. I believe in Poole, and like you said, I am totally on agree with they do need to find somebody that can step up, even if it's those little swing passes or little check down routes. Hey, get the quarterback's confidence up. Hey, let's take a deep shot down to Nick, because Nick, like you said, I ain't even have to say it. Nick's gonna do what he's gonna do. They want to see somebody else beat them besides him, and if you can find somebody else they can beat them too besides Nick, you might have something on tap. But I'll close that game off if you ain't got nothing else, and I'll slide into the next one.
Yeah, let's roll on.
All right. Hey, Richmond was at Northwest Guilford. Beat them 42-21. Ain't really got too much on the game. I seen the quarterback I think he threw for 3 passing touchdowns and over 2 bills. if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not really too deep in on Northwest Guilford, but hey, it's a good win for a local team. We don't have to play them, none of us. But anytime you get a local team winning, not a bad gig.
Yeah, Richmond's been kind of up and down for me this year. I really thought that they'd be a little more stable than they are, but I guess they're doing what I guess you should have. They beat the teams they should. Maybe last week you can kind of say they probably should have won that game going off record, but Roseville had played two big-time teams, and they were 0-2, but they had played two really good teams. So, kind of coming in, you knew that, and that was a chance for them to lose. But, Richmond's got that deep tradition of being a really tough, really high-powered team and really tough to beat at home. So, Richmond's going to do what they do. They're going to, win most of the games they win. They're going to play some big-time games. They're going to beat some people you don't expect them to beat. But I look for Richmond. I don't know what it's going to take. But they're going to get back to that mentality where nobody wants to play Richmond County. I don't think right now they really scare anybody. But, sometimes that can be on your side where you can sneak up on some people and beat some people you shouldn't. But, Richmond's always been a feared team around, not just our area, anywhere around the state, But I was sitting here thinking the other day, what's it going to take for Richmond to get back to that? Scotland had them on the ropes for several years. They beat Scotland this year, but Richmond, nobody is really scared to play Richmond anymore like they used to be. And I don't know what it's going to take to get back to that, but I think they can. They definitely have the talent up that way, but I don't know. I mean, it's hard to put a finger on what Richmond's got going on right now.
Yeah, credit to Richmond, man. They must got to have a good feeder program. I feel like you're at best when you see these little red teams. You thinking of it now, you're like 8 and 9, 9 and 10. You looking at, hey man, that don't really make a difference to us. But hey, when you look 4 or 5 years from now, that's the guys you're gonna have playing for you at the high school level, and everybody saying, hey, that's that same team that won state or went to the third round or this and that. And you ain't want a team. You kind of want to hear that. You're thinking in the back of your mind, yeah, I want to hear that, but at the same time, hey, they're only 8, 9 years old. They might not even be the same players. Half of them might not even play when they get to the high school level. Because like a Coach Bird always tells me, man, money, girls, and cars will change what you think, man. It'll show who really wants to play this game at the end of the day. And I've seen it for myself, man. Some people don't follow their dreams. They let it change them. They let society change them, man. But like you said, Richmond has been up and down. Like you said, they win the games they're supposed to beat. They're going to be a tough out for somebody. They didn't got beat by that playoff team last week that they lost to in the playoffs last year. So I look for them to be a tough out, but we'll slide on over.
I'm going to speak on that before we move on. It really don't have nothing to do with Richmond, but like you were saying, the feeder program. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this right now. Everybody y'all can write it down. A lot of people might not want to hear it. Marlboro went this year be their first year of having one middle school team. It pissed a lot of people off because it did cut out a bunch of kids who's not playing now that used to play because it's just one team instead of all the schools. But I'm telling you right now, that is going to be big time. Within the next 5 years, Marlboro County will be back on top of the state in 3A because of now those kids starting in the 7th grade, they're going to be running the same offense they're going to be running in the 12th grade. That is big time to get a jump on that because starting from the 7th grade, the quarterback is going to know all the right. Cam Smith was running the same playbook. He's a junior now. If he'd been running for the last 5 years, he would have looked 10 times better than he did Friday night. But I'm telling you right now, that is going to be huge for this program for them kids running the same exact playbook, offensively and defensively, 2 years in advance of when they get to high school because Terrell does it. They got one middle school team. Even back when Terrell was running the ball, doing the wishbone, those kids knew that offense inside and out because that's all they knew their whole life. But I'm telling you right now, give it about 3 years and you'll start seeing a jump in Marlboro County's offense. I just feel that wholeheartedly, and it sucks for the kids who kind of don't get to play as much now that they used to. But program-wise, that's probably going to be one of the biggest moves that's been made in Marlboro County in many years.
Yeah, I can definitely 100% back you on that. Sherrall does have one, but like you said, in middle school. and they do try to run the same plays a little bit, but they always got to throw their own little butter on it too. But like you said, it's gonna make them better when they get older. If you do look back, if you look at Abbeville, I know they're 1A. Those kids run that same offense when they are 7 and 8 years old, even if it's in flag football. I read an article maybe about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Those guys, each rec team, it don't matter who's on what team, even if you might not play when you get older, they run the same exact offense, the same exact play since they are 7. And you look, when they get to 9th grade, they might not have the signs, they might not be ready. But hey, that kid on that sideline knows what's going, what gap should be going to, who should get that blocker, who should pick that guy off the edge. They know what's going on. And like you said, that is a good thing for Marlboro County, what they did. And those 4 or 5 middle schools don't got to beat up on each other. They can beat up on other counties together now.
And so far, that's what's happening. If you look at some of the scores of those middle school games they played so far, I don't think there's been one closer than 3 or 4 touchdowns. I mean, Pageland's got a really good team right now. I don't know how good their middle school is, but I think Marlboro beat them by 3 touchdowns this week. I mean, I'm telling you, it's going to make a big difference in these kids. And I wish I'm not saying don't want them to combine all sports, because I mean that does cut a lot of kids out. But if you're going to do that, have multiple teams like baseball. You can have multiple teams in baseball. You can have multiple teams in basketball, but get them running the same concepts. You might call it a different name or something, but running the same exact concepts. I remember EJ, when he took over the middle school baseball team in McCall, he said the first phone call he made was he called Coach Pierce. He said, hey, what are some of your play calls or some of your things that you call that I'm going to start teaching my kids right now? So when they get in 9th grade, when you say, you're fake bunt steal or whatever that sign is, they know that sign.
Yeah.
They might not be as good as an athlete, but when you say it, they're going to, if you ask them a question, they're going to know what that is. He said, I'm going to start implementing that. And that's something we started whenever Zach, my son Zach, was in, your brother was in 7th grade, when he just started coaching. He started teaching those things so that if you can tell now Zach's in the 9th grade. I mean, Zach's starting on varsity. I mean, some out of necessity, but some because Zach just knows what's going on, because EJ started teaching him that 2 years ago, where some of these other kids come from other schools, they didn't have that. But I can tell you that it's going to work, man. It's going to work, but it is going to cut some of the kids out that kind of on the fence about playing or whatever. It might eliminate those guys.
Yeah, I 100% I can see this. One thing we do in Sherrod now, we've started 2 years ago, is we let those guys practice in the off season in the fall and going into the spring. So, and we had the coach over there, so let him watch us and learn. So, and what situations and different situational stuff, he can see, be like, hey, that's a good call to do, boy. Let's try this. I mean, like you said, maybe like the first and third plays on defense, or what to do, situational, like with the runners, even when you're hitting, like hit runs and what to do. Like that little stuff means a lot.
Especially in baseball. I mean, a whole lot in baseball.
Yes. Even when you get older. Even, and somehow it doesn't in basketball. Even like pick and roll, hey, no, let's do that. Or when you roll out, don't cut that lane, cut baseline. It goes to different things, but we probably could talk about this for 2 or 3 hours and still keep going.
We could. We probably need to move on, because this is a deep subject that I'm really, I'm really invested in that. Like I said, it does suck for some of the average kids, or some of the kids borderline making teams, or some of the kids that if just Clio had a team or just McCall had a team, they would be playing starting probably because of just numbers wise. But it's going to make the program at Marlboro County really, really strong. Which those kids probably won't be playing when they got 9th grade anyway, because like you said, there's just so much other stuff going on. But I wish we could have multiple teams. Maybe if we could have multiple teams in different sports, I think, or maybe even add some middle school sports.
That's what I was going to say.
Different middle school sports.
One thing
football, baseball, basketball.
One thing before we got off of that topic, like you said, with like kids being on the fence about like playing middle school sports, and their parents, some parents is making them. But if you look at if you're like people that's actually committed to playing that sport and want to play at the next level, or before high school, and then maybe play at the next level, those guys need to be 100% committed in 7th and 8th grade. You don't need to just go out there. I mean, I'm saying this for any kid. You don't need to go out there and just waste your parents' time, your time, whoever's giving you money for gas or for food or paying you to take you to these practices or maybe these camps, whatever. Don't take that stuff for granted because you want to play you want to make this high school team, guys. When you get to high school, you do not have to play. You do not pay to play high school sports. Unless whatever, I don't know what y'all got going on the side with the coach, but I know we don't roll like that, but that's another topic. But like I said, you need to be 100% committed to playing. If you going into 7th grade, middle school sports, and you want to play high school football, you need to be 100% committed when you're going into the 7th grade. You don't need to do 50% or 6%. If you can't give it 100%, you're all the time. Don't go out there and don't even waste the coach's time, because you wasting the coach's time can waste somebody else's time that's actually wanting to be out there and wanting to learn and wanting to get better and be, hey, I want to be the next star at my high school. I want to put our high school back on the map from where it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago or maybe 30 years ago, whenever your team was the best or back then. But like you said, they cut out some of the middle schools. I wish they kind of would have kept the middle school or like a C team that is for kids that's not advanced, that needs a little bit more fundamentals. And hey, we can work with that kid more. He might not be ready for the old middle school team, but he might not be ready for the 7th grade team where he can learn the basics. Because some people, like rec ball coaches, they just out there because most of the time their kids are playing. I hate to say it, but that's how sometimes it is. Their kids out there, so they want to be out there. But hey, all power to them. I support those guys that's going out there and just trying to be a good parent and helping out some other kids that want to play. Because I remember back when I was playing rec, some coaches weren't really fully committed to it, and I really look back on that now, and I hate that. I wish I would have got to play with somebody who was actually committed to trying to get us better. Even though when you that young, people look at you when you that young, they be like, hey, that kid right there, he might be something look out for, like in this town and even in this county, or even in the state. Whenever he gets into the high school, especially if he's doing this at this age, what is he gonna look like when he gets up to this age? But I'll leave it at that with that one. If you don't got any more nothing to say on that.
No, we better move on. We've already we've probably been too long now. We talked about 2 games. We've been here 40 minutes.
We'll cut through some games and we'll just give 1 or 2 things about it. But Chesterfield held their own at home against C.A. Johnson, 49-38. I heard Nick Dixon, coach of the Rams on the side running quarterback. Since C.A. Johnson had 1 or 2 guys that they can just go over top with 50-50 balls, they didn't win a single one. But sometimes there's small schools like that. 1 or 2 of your star players can't win them all for you. But Chesterfield wins out 49-38 at home.
Yeah, I picked Chesterfield to win that game, and Chesterfield's always been a bunch that they never really had the biggest kids, but they were always very competitive, played hard. And I think you're seeing that starting to show again. Like you said, when you play on the 1A level, and sometimes you're on 2A level, you got one big time kid. I mean, he can carry a team. Most of those athletes, they just throw at quarterback. So I like that. Those guys are big receivers that are leaving them out there and letting them play their natural position and start to develop, because you see a lot of teams like that, they'll throw one of those just really good players at quarterback, and you'll see it happen. I think at Mullins, and Xavier Leggett, when he was at Mullins, I think, they just had to move him to quarterback.
Yep.
But South Carolina knew all along, hey, we're going to get this kid here. He's going to be a receiver, but it's stunning his growth. Xavier didn't get to play first couple of years because, he was still learning to play receiver. He was banged up a lot because he'd been playing quarterback, hadn't been hit a whole lot. But you see him in that 3rd and 4th year just take huge strides and jumps and, to being one of the top draft picks in the NFL. So, although, it helps your high school team, and really that's what you're trying to do, it can stunt their potential. But, good college coaches can see through that, and they'll see those guys, how good athletes. I mean, I can name a list of them that went to South Carolina that were high school quarterbacks that got moved to receiver. Kenny McKinley was great. Pharaoh Cooper was great. Xavier Leggett. Even Savell, when he got to South Carolina, they tried to play him a receiver a lot, because he bounced all around. But, coaches can see talent, and they know. And even some high school quarterbacks, DQ Smith at South Carolina now, he's playing safe. I mean, if you're a smart player, they put you at quarterback, or if you're just a good athlete. But I like what C.A. Johnson did, what you said. They're keeping their best players playing their national position, I really like to see that, and that seemed like it was a really good game to watch. Probably would have been a really good game to watch. That was a shootout. Unlike I was in a defensive battle. That's not always the funnest games to watch. But if you look back on it, you would say, man, that was a really good game. But kudos Chesterfield, man. They're hanging tough, man. They're looking really good right now. I'm very interested to see what goes on in the rest of the season when they move on in the region play.
Speaking of a shootout, Beaufort over McBee 49-30, and Chesterfield's got McBee next week. I feel like, and region play is starting final week. I feel like this might be a good time for Nick Dixon and company to, hey, if you banged up, let us know. Let's try to get some guys maybe play a first half and let's get them out of here. If we can score some early on touchdowns and just let them rest some. I mean, because, going to region play is going to be a different thing. But, like we talked about this, if we didn't have nothing to do, that might have been a good $8 or $10 to pay to go watch. Beaufort prevailed 49-30. I heard McBee's coach, Coach Carter's on the Saturday morning quarterback. He said that they were letting them run their plays and they weren't trying to stop them. It was going to be an offensive battle, is what he said. But he said he did have guys banged up, a bunch of guys banged up. And when you only got about 25 players on your team at one A school and you got 7 or 8 that's banged up, that really take a toll on you.
Yeah, man. Even though McBee lost, it seemed like, they were down pretty big early. But it seems like they may have found something that started working for them, on the offensive side of the ball. And maybe they can capitalize on that and build on it this coming up week. I know Chesterfield's going to be a tough matchup for them. But, to score 30 points, by far, I think that's the most points they scored all year. Maybe you can combine all those games together and they ain't got 30 points to do it.
I don't believe it.
But, like I said, they found something that's working, and I can remember when I was in high school, our offense was struggling a little bit. We'd run the same plays over 20, 25 times in a row. Coach Sharp would say, hey, we might not going to run them down mile, but we're going to be good at these 3. And if you can really, if you can be great in 3 plays, just run them till they stop them. And like I said, I ain't saying that's what McBee did because I didn't get to watch the game, but evidently they found something to work. Now if they could just find a little bit more defense, maybe they can get off the 0 man and put one in the win column here coming up.
Yeah, McBee, they're going to need to look for a win. I think they're right at about 170 points giving up in these first 3 or 4 games, but hopefully they can bounce back. And, hey, I feel like all the pressure on this game next week is going to be on Chesterfield. Hey, your coach, your Nick Dixon at Chesterfield. Hey, guys, we ain't want to let them win their first game. Don't let it be us. Let's let it happen to somebody else maybe the following week. Because I'm looking at McBee's schedule here. They got Chesterfield. I think they got a bye, and then they open up with Lamar first week of region play. So they got their hands full for at least another 2 weeks or 3 weeks is what I'm looking at. But I hope McBee can get something going. The coach did say they had 3 or 4 fumbles early on that really hurt them, hurt the momentum. They drive on the field, they fumble inside the 30 or inside the 20. They get in the red zone and screw up. Something would happen. But we'll move on from that game if you ain't got nothing else. Scotland held their own against Overheels 49-26.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have some stats for you in a big-time player. I had somebody tell me that they were going to send me some information on that game, and they didn't. But I was really looking forward to it. Maybe I can get it before the
you can't trust nobody
before the preview show at the end of the week. But yeah, I think Scotland had one kid that had a really big time game. His name slips my mind right now, but I was just talking over lunch today with somebody about it. And Scotland they're one of those teams, man. It's never an easy game. I mean, they might not be having the best season. I ain't saying, I'm just speaking in general, but they're always going to play you tough, and they're always going to be hard to beat, especially at home. Scotland's
I don't think you can walk in there.
It's going to be a tough out, man. You're never going to be, like you said, you're never just going to walk in there and win by 2 or 3 touchdowns and, them not put up a fight. So, pretty sure I picked Scotland to win this week. Yep. I knew they would. And they're going to be tough. They dropped down too this year. They're playing in a smaller division.
They went up.
Oh, they went up?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, they moved up. So, well.
They're not playing Union Pines and Pinecrest.
Okay. Well, I was wrong. I thought it went the opposite way. But Scotland is it's going to be a new region for them. So I guess it's going to be kind of exciting just to see, some teams that you ain't never really played before, and you're going to start playing on a more consistent basis. But it's hard to prepare for a team you never played for, but also it's hard for them to prepare for you. So you use that to your advantage. I think Scotland's going to be a pretty decent team this year. It can maybe surprise somebody and go 2 or 3 rounds deep in the playoffs. And they got a lot of young talent. Next year, I think is going to be the year that you see them really prevail and be tough and really be a title contender. Their second year, but Coach Bailey always got those guys ready to play over there, man. And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be if you look up in the 3rd round of playoffs and Scotland's still hanging around. Because that's just what they do.
Especially if you got to come to Laurinburg.
Yeah, if they can get that home field advantage, that's big for them, man. But in high school, I don't think home field advantage is that big of a difference. It can be if you got a really good home crowd environment, but man, there's just so much for teenagers to do on a Friday night these days, man. That it's not as big like it used to be. When I was in school, or even back when you were in school. But Scotland is a tough place to play. But all high schools don't have that advantage. But so you can see a lot more teams going on the road and win ball games these days than you used to. But like I said, kudos to Scotland. Shout out to them. Keep on the winning track, man, and we'll see. We'll see what they can do this week coming up, man. If they can stay on that winning streak.
Yeah. Speaking of one thing, before I slip off from Scotland, I know when I was back in high school, I did go watch them play Mallard Creek one year, and Mallard Creek had a big offensive lineman that was getting heavily recruited. Was a 5-star lineman, and I remember Alabama Nick Saban. I think it was Nick Saban. Was it Nick Saban? He landed his helicopter in the field over there to watch that game, and I thought that was the craziest thing. And that was crazy because Kirby Smart was also there looking at Zamir. It was back in the same year time frame when that happened, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. But we'll slide on over. West Stanley went to Central, 35-14. Central took the starters out when it was 35-0, so can't really get too crazy on their defense because they was probably the 2s and 3s out there. But Central's going to be a tough out. They just already got a dual threat quarterback, and I think it's some Allen, Lou Allen, maybe his name, Dwayne Lou Allen, 6'2", 6'3" guy, 220, 230. He can run it pretty if he's got to. If you don't see nothing, he's out of there, he's gone. But them and Chicago match up. I think the first region matchup, and I think that might have region implications on it.
That is Marlboro's bye week, so I will be stepping across the river to check out that showdown. That's been on my radar here for a couple of weeks. So that's gonna be a big game, and my plan is to be at that game. Maybe we can do something on the sideline pregame.
Yep. I can make it happen.
But yeah, I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, and coaches don't like to do that, but we can do that. We fans, so I'm really looking forward to that game in 2 weeks. That is Marlboro's bye week, so my plan is to be in attendance at that game that Friday night. So if y'all need any autographs, I will be there. Me and Devin, we'll be signing autographs.
Bring a pen because we might not be prepared. Shirts is the best, hats is even better. But we'll slide on over. This is really no contest here. South Florence got back in the win column after the upset from Northwestern. Beat Fort Dorchester 65-7.
Yeah, there ain't too much to say on that. It's like South Florence a little pissed off. They come out pissed off. They come out and make a statement early. I need to reach out to my old teammate Ryan Sharper. Just get his input on that. I think he's still there. I could be wrong.
His head probably down right now.
He might have. I know his brother was coaching at Brooklyn Casey. He may have moved up there. I haven't talked to him in a little while, but I need to reach out to Ryan and see where he's at these days. But yeah, I thought South Florence might win, man, but that's very surprising. Fort Dorchester, they're down like that. But you did say that they had some guys transferred out, so they may have had some coaching changes. I don't know. Like I said, I'm gonna reach out to Ryan and see where he's at.
You never know what happens. Kids transfer nowadays, and little they know, coaches transfer too.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? It could be for the good for school. Sometimes it can be bad, but sometimes it can be good. Like, hey, these kids might get together and say, I'm just use Marlboro for example. I said, man, Marlboro's down. They ain't really got no players. So us 5 go over there, all from different schools. man, we can all start. We can be good. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Kids talk, and it's big in baseball. I think it's gonna be big in baseball because travel ball is so big.
Yeah.
Those kids play travel ball together, and they saying
Football don't have
hey,
that.
instead of just one of us, we being the only good player on our team, let's all transfer to such and such, and we can all play together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that does happen, especially in the Midlands and the low country area.
It does. When you got so many, like Columbia, you got so many high schools, or Charleston, you got so many high schools. Not so much around here because all the high schools are not like in the same district or whatever. But it does happen a lot in, like you said, in the bigger schools, and that's why you see most of the same schools are always so good in baseball, man. Yeah, I live in Columbia. We got 5 high schools, but if I'm playing travel ball with all these guys and they going to AC Florida and I'm at Lexington, I might transfer to AC Florida. You know what I mean? It's been happening for a long time at schools like that because they live in the same town or city. There's just so many schools to choose from. And
yeah, it's really happening now since social media is out there. Because people say, hey, look, he's going, man. I think I might play good at that player. We played together a few times at these showcases.
Right.
Let's make something happen here. But well, that's another topic we probably can talk for an hour about on too. But we'll slide a little bit over in Florence. West Florence went to Wilson and came out with a loss. I took West Florence and company. I thought they was gonna get it done, especially when Wilson had to play on that Monday night against Dillon. But Dillon was riding high for Monday night. They rode on into Friday night and rode out with another victory.
Yeah, I picked West too, man. I told you I wouldn't be surprised if Wilson won that game, and I thought West had maybe had a little bit too much firepower because Wilson hadn't been scoring an awful lot of points. But hey, I mean, Wilson's opening my eyes, man.
Check them. Somebody check them boys.
I might be writing down the Wilson Tigers in my win column, until further notice.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that one. They got my attention. It was also our game of the week that we agreed on mid-show, but shout out to their head coach, man. He's 3-1 now. I don't know who they got this week. I had to get my thing ready, and we'll be back on probably Thursday night to preview the rest of the matchups. But our last one before we get out of here, Dillon got their feelings hurt by Wilson Monday night, and I don't know what Kevin Roller told them, but they went to Marion and dropped the hammer 61-6 in Marion.
How did Marion score? That's all I want to know.
I think it was 3 safeties.
Yeah,
nah, I'm playing with.
Yeah, I think that must have been. I don't know when they scored.
Was that with the sixes out there?
Yeah, Dillon probably had pulled up some of their JV guys, man. That's probably when Marion scored. But just in all seriousness, man, Dillon's probably already taken more losses than they thought they'd take all year. Sometimes a loss can be good, especially going into region play. Coach ain't never gonna say it's a good loss, but sometimes it can be an attention grabber for you players. Sometimes when you playing too good, you think you're better than you are. Like going in that Wilson game, like I said, the quarterback from Dillon had he only played 2 quarters the previous game because he had put up so many big numbers before half. They pulled him out, and then they got into a dogfight Friday night with Wilson. Or Monday night, like they did with Scotland, and you still got to remember that kid's a freshman.
That's what I was just about to piggyback off of you, man. That guy is only a freshman, and it's really hard to do that because that guy does not have varsity experience.
Yeah, that's almost where you don't want to pull him out of the game because you just want him to get all the experience he can. But then the fans gonna be like, they're trying to run the score up, but really and truly, you
just played with 3 games under his belt.
And his whole career because. You can't play a contact varsity sport before the 9th grade, but so that kid's still a freshman, and he really needs all the experience he can get. But if you're gonna get him, you better get him now because that kid's gonna be around for a while. He's gonna be tough. The more experience he gets.
I look for that kid also for some schools, maybe in the Midlands area, to contact him maybe before next summer if I had to put my money on it.
Maybe. But I mean, Dillon's a powerhouse school, man. They got a really good program. It's gonna be hard for big schools like that to lose players unless you got somebody on your second or third team that's not playing that may transfer to a lower school or a smaller school just to play, which I wouldn't blame them. But it's gonna be hard for a school to pull a starting quarterback away from an established program like Dillon's got. I'm not saying it's impossible because money talks these days, but I just think it will be tough. But are you still going to be in attendance for Dillon Hartsville this week?
I was just about to get to that. You said, speaking of good losses, I promise you, if they lose this Friday night, that is not a good loss to the Hartsville Red Foxes, because that could go either way this Friday night in Dillon. I will let you guys know that will be the Home Turf Sports game of the week. That will be a big non-region crosstown matchup. I will be in attendance for. I will be in attendance for there. So if you want an autograph, he won't be there, but I will be there. I'll sign his name. I'm just kidding, I can't do that. But I will be there. Do you have any last remarks before we get out of here? It's past my bedtime. Birthday's tomorrow. Someone's got to do something more, man.
Yeah, I just want to say, I just one little thing. I think that game has got the potential to be a shootout. It may be a 40-some, 30-some game.
I ain't getting into it till Thursday.
I'm not going to, but I'm just putting it on your radar. Both of those teams can score points, and I look for that to be a very exciting game. And I'm gonna just leave it at that. But yeah, like I said, Devin will be in attendance. I'll be getting updates from that game. You can shoot me some messages. That way I can relay some scores on the Marble County Radio PDBSN game Friday night. Marble plays North Myrtle. So you guys, if you can get out to a game, get out to a game. And we always say that any game, any local team. Or if you want to go see a really good game, get over there to Hartsville, Dillon. That should be a really good game. Or if you want to stay local, go to Marlboro, go to Straw. It doesn't matter. Just get out to a game and support the kids, man.
Hey, guys, if you listening from out of our area and you want us to maybe attend your game, just check in with us, man. We might well be up for it if one of the teams has a bye that we cover in the local area. But keep subscribing to our YouTube channel. We getting closer to 100. Home Turf Sports on Facebook, Home Turf Sports Podcast. I think it's what you got it all the way out. But that'll do it for this show, the recap show. It was nice getting together on this Sunday. Get a little recap, talk football. We talked a little bit of future things we want to see and a little bit of life goals that I actually hit on for a few minutes there. But he's Brian, I'm Devin. We